Hi everybody. This video is in response to caregivers who feel stuck caring for an aging parent, a spouse, or another person. It's likely that you probably started out helping a little bit and then the responsibilities took over and the time and the commitment and everything that you're doing is just too much. Now, admittedly, maybe you did too much because you wanted to be too helpful, and now this person that you care for is so dependent on you, and all you're thinking is, oh, I want my life back. So we're here to talk about how to create a caregiving exit plan and why everybody should have one. I'm Pamela D Wilson. I am a caregiving expert, advocate, and speaker who has worked in this field for over 20 years, helping families and aging adults and the disabled and caregivers manage through all of this. Please follow me on my YouTube channel, click below, share this video, go to my website, PamelaDWilson.com. There is so much hope, help, and support for caregivers and aging adults. So what we want to do is we want to think of an exit plan kind of like a transition plan. So here's a couple of simple examples that maybe are seen more as like life's progress versus an exit plan, but truly they are an exit plan because there's this point of transition, this point of pivoting from doing this to doing that. So think about when you were in school, grade school, high school, college, graduate school. And your goal was to get to the next class, get to the next grade, learn the next thing, take, history class 1, history class 2, history class 3, algebra, calculus, whatever it was. And so there was this progression of events that eventually led to graduation day, right? And so, but during that time, you were probably planning for, well, like what's next? So you're in grade school, well, high school's next. You're in high school. If you're not going to go to college, what's next? Then I get a job. Then I move out. Or you go to college, and then what's next after college? And then you're in the work world. So let's say that you have a job and you're working really hard to learn new skills or to figure out, like, what do I need to get to the next level so that I can get promoted and make more money? Well, in work, being promoted is this transition, and it's kind of an exit plan from the old job to the new job, right? Then we get older and retiring. So we're retiring as this transition out of the work world, and we have to figure out like what we're going to do, right? Because when you're working, you get up, you go to work for 8 hours, you come home. Well, when you retire, you don't have that schedule. So what is it you're going to do all day? Are you going to just sit home and watch TV and be bored? Or are you going to get out and make friends and go do things and have interests that you've always thought about doing, but now you're doing a hobby? Maybe you're playing golf or tennis or you're sewing or you're gardening or you're doing something else, right? But what happens is we all get so busy that it's really easy to live life as a caregiver on autopilot because you have this long list of things to do, right? And you're just checking off that list and you're like, oh, I got to be here, I got to be here, I got to be there. Well, allows no time for thinking time up here about what next, what after caregiving. So the role of a caregiver is not really viewed as progress, right? And it's not really viewed, unfortunately, as an achievement like graduating or getting a job. And so because we don't think of it like that, because it's kind of just something that happens, right? We don't think of like caregiving ending or an exit plan or saying, I'll do this for this long and then I need to do something else. So when you think about education, you got your first 12 years, right? And then you got 4 years of high school. And then you could have 4 years of college and 2 years of graduate school. Or if you're a doctor or in a different profession, you might have a lot more schooling or different schooling that takes a lot more time. And if you're working, you may think, well, I want to get promoted every 2 years, or I want to change jobs if there's no opportunity to get promoted at this job. And so you kind of have this plan, right? Which really is an exit plan. You're exiting this and going to this, transitioning from here to there. So being a caregiver is kind of the opposite, and we don't really think of it as attaching a time frame to it, like I mentioned, because it's not really seen as a job, even though if you are a caregiver, you know it's a very time-consuming and stressful job that you don't get paid for. What most caregivers don't realize is you think this is going to be for a short period of time, and then 5 years later you look back and you're like, oh, wow, I've been caregiving for 5 years. 10 years later you look back, 15 years, 20 years, and at that point a lot of caregivers are saying, oh my God, I gave up my life. I gave up all of those opportunities to do other things. Caregivers don't think of this job as a caregiver as trading time that reduces your ability to progress over here. So depending on the time that you commit, you may put education on hold. Well, you can't get that time back, right? If you leave a job to be a caregiver, you can't get that work experience back. And the working world changes so quickly that at the time you want to get back into the working world, you may have no relevant skills whatsoever. Caregivers can put marriage on hold, family on hold, your social life on hold, everything on hold, which is why a transition plan and an exit plan is so important. So the question here is, if you're a caregiver, you're going to trade time from other parts of your life. How long do you want your life to be on hold? Is it indefinitely? Are you going to do this for the rest of your life? Is it a year, 2 years, 3 years? So my recommendation here is to have a very early discussion with the person that you care for about the time you can commit and what you're going to do, and put a time frame on this. Can you commit to help for a year or maybe 2 years, and then other plans have to be made? Now you might be thinking, well, Pamela, I'm married, I have a spouse, it's not like I can get out of the marriage. Well, of course you can't, but you can still put parameters and boundaries around what you personally can and have to do, and what options exist to bring in outside help and assistance. So caregivers in many situations get into these dilemmas and don't have an exit plan because they feel like they have to be the solution. They're the only one who cares. They're the only one that can do this. So caregivers unintentionally drive off helpful people who may have offered to help, and you said, oh, you didn't do it the right way, and this person's like, well, heck, I'm not going to help if they don't appreciate my help, right? Or maybe you haven't asked, or maybe your siblings are too busy living their lives because they have boundaries, or they didn't have a good relationship with your parent and they just don't want to be involved. So when you think of it, your life today, my life today, is this culmination or this addition of 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Everything that we did during that time shows up today in our present life situation. And we have to accept that and realize it. Now, maybe our lives are not what we would want them to be. Well, the question is then, what are we going to do to change it? What can we do to change it? Just like this life of the person that you care for is a result of their 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, right? What they did every day, how they spent their time, who they spent their time with. And so let's look at an example, two contrasts. So one, very difficult, one optimistic, right? So you have a 71-year-old. This person has never been physically active their entire life. They have a lot of health problems. And so as a result of this, they're tired all the time. They sit around all day. They watch television because they're tired. They don't have the energy to get out of the house and go socialize and be with people. So as a result, this person has become very alone and isolated. Now, admittedly, sometimes this can happen because of an accident. Some freak thing happens, an injury, an illness, and they're in this situation. But at that turning point, at that point of pivoting or transitioning, it's important to say, okay, my life has changed. I can no longer do this. What can I do to make my life better? What can I do to remain social and active if I can't do all those other things? So we have to look at like the constraints and the limitations and be optimistic enough to figure out options rather than saying, well, you know, this is what my life is. I'm never going to be able to do this anymore. I'm just going to sit home and watch TV and eat, you know, potato chips and cookies, right? So then on the other hand, I don't know if you watch American Ninja Warrior, but this is something that I want you to look up. So last night, this is going to date this video, but there was a 71-year-old woman who broke the record on an obstacle course for her age. Her name is Ginny, Ginny McCall, MACCOLL. Look it up. Watch the video of her. She is an example for everybody, no matter what your age, that you can be healthy and active if you choose to be. So as this caregiver, when you look back at your caregiving life, a year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, are you stuck? Are you stuck like the 71-year-old example that I gave, who sees no options but to sit on the couch and be isolated and do nothing? Or do you want to be like Ginny McCall, who doesn't allow that number 71 to limit what she can do every day? So my recommendation is, if you are a caregiver, or if you're in any role in life, don't allow limited thinking to make you feel that, wow, this is all there is. This is the way life has to be. Don't allow the expectations and the beliefs of other people to limit what you can do or what you want to do in life. And just don't go through the motions of life. Make transition plans for things that you want to do. Make an exit plan for caregiving. Make that plan for the next step of your life, whatever it might be. I'm Pamela D Wilson. My website is PamelaDWilson.com. Again, please like, please follow, please share my YouTube channel so that others looking for hope, help, and support can find it. And please go to my website, PamelaDWilson.com. On there, online courses, free, my caregiving library, my blog, my radio and podcast show, The Caring Generation. Here there are over 800 videos on YouTube, so there's plenty of hope, help, and support for you and to share with other people. Thanks for being here. I'll see you all again soon in another video.